Hello everyone and welcome to another Detailed Diatribe. I am Blue and today I am joined by Red.
And I'm honestly mostly surprised it took us this long to get to this subject.
You know, yeah, ever since I did my marathon of all the Mission Impossible movies with Cyan in advance of going to see, Cleo, could you not sneeze while I'm recording? Oh my god. She was like scratching up a storm when Red and I were getting ready and I'm like, hey Cleo, I'm gonna need you to like find a spot and sit. She's like, okay, what if I breathe loudly at you? Okay, thank you Cleo. Everyone say thank you Cleo in the comments.
Thank you Cleo, your contributions are invaluable.
But ever since Cyan and I did a marathon of all the Mission Impossible movies in advance of Dead Reckoning, I was like, oh, I liked these movies before. Now I have a problem. So this is another entry in the series of like Blue finds a thing he really likes and then likes it way too much.
Yes.
So today we're talking about Mission Impossible, but not all of them, not so broad. We are narrowing in on the art of the second act therein. Thank you, Red, for suggesting this title because I came to you with like, I don't know how to title this, and you're like, what's the crux of this? And I'm like, well, it's kind of about the second act. You're like, okay, cool, follow that.
I mean, that's the thing with the detailed diatribes. The joy is picking out a detail and just making it all about that. And yeah, you have a really interesting thesis on this one when it comes to like narrative structure, and I'm excited to see how we explore it.
I'm excited to get into it, but first a little bit of context, just a teens. Mission Impossible is now a 29-year film franchise. It is ever so slightly younger than me in 1996. Franchise with the sauce. It is, frankly, just really damn good. I know my media tastes aren't the most wide-ranging, but when I like what I like, goddamn do I like what I like. And I really fucking like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
It is the kind of series where, of the time of recording 7 films, although 8 by the time you're watching this, every movie fits the same core tone and has the same, basic attributes that make it good. It's the same ingredients, but they're assembled a little bit differently, and each one is special enough in its own way and distinct enough to be someone's favorite, which is a rare treat in a franchise. Usually it's like, this one's good, the other ones are terrible, or like, these 2 are fine and the other ones are all mid, but every movie, except for 2, with the exception to that exception of Red, who really likes 2, so therefore the exception is nullified. Every movie is someone's favorite.
Well, I wouldn't say 2's my favorite. I do think it's funny with these all lined up that like all the posters fit Tom Cruise is looking stoic in profile, except for 4, where it's Tom Cruise is looking stoic in a wide shot.
Yeah, he's looking right at the camera, so you know he means business. Yeah.
This one's about the team, and then the rest of them kind of aren't.
Although from 4 onward, you really get more of the team presence, because the first 3 posters are like, it's Tom Cruise, and then 4, 5, 6, 7 are like, look at the rest of the IMF, they're also here.
They are also here. They're smaller because we paid them less. Here we go.
The cast also started to get more consistent. After 3, we get like, okay, Benjamin Dunn is in the field, and he and Luther are like best friends and maybe married. They have that fun dynamic going on. Anyway. Why does Mission Impossible hit different? I can talk about, that I think it is so good, but what is it about Mission Impossible that makes it so good? And a lot of people will point to like, oh, it's the stunts. Tom Cruise does all his own stunts. This is super cool, except for when he breaks his leg jumping off a building on Mission Impossible 6, and then he has to stop production for a month while he recovers. Not great. It's like, this is why stuntmen exist. But it's like, the stunts are a big part of it, but there is more to it than that. Specifically, in my opinion, it's that the stunts are never superhuman. The fact that Tom Cruise does all of his own stunts, or at least most of his own stunts, is kind of in the background of our brains and helps us understand, like, there's a human scale kinetic quality that we can all kind of understand with our own baselines. It's like Jackie Chan fights. They're in environments we know, with materials that we all understand, like the weight and heft of. When he hits a motherfucker with a ladder, you know what a ladder roughly feels like. You can imagine that hit. If he's like smacking someone with an iron, it's like, yeah, I know what that would look and feel like.
You're right. They do a good job of making everyone feel extremely competent, but in a way that you could theoretically reach just by being like really, really experienced and well-trained. Like, they're not running around like Batman exactly. It's more like, no, this is a guy. You abundantly feel it when he gets knocked down.
Yeah. And he does get knocked down. That's a big part of it. It's something that they really lean into, starting with Mission Impossible 4, is like, he can mess up. Ethan Hunt can take some hits. But I think the comparison that I have in my head of like what makes for these stunts being the way they are versus like some of the other, action movie things is like when Captain America stops a helicopter, that's really cool. But we're like, I don't actually know how impressive that is because I've never lifted a helicopter before. It's in the realm of like, that's insane and superhuman, so it's just kind of like a superhuman feat. But when Tom Cruise does something, there's like, you can see like the person doing that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but there's a sense of like, oh, I understand that's a complicated thing he's doing, and you can see, like, even if it's just trying to, like, lift himself up on, like, the edge of a helicopter in the case of the end of Mission Impossible 6, it's like, yeah, he sells it as a convincingly complicated stunt to perform. There's a very grounded quality that makes the stunts hit a little bit harder. In the case of Mission Impossible 4 being a great example, they can draw out some characterization and help tell the story by showing, in one case, the growth of a character, where we start with a very grounded stunt of Ethan Hunt escaping from a fourth-story window in Russia after the Kremlin gets exploderized, which leads into then him climbing off the side of the Burj Khalifa as a nice kind of like setup payoff of like the Burj Khalifa sequence is insane and very much like bordering on superhuman. Even though Tom Cruise was actually doing that, it's like, okay, that's nuts. That's a pretty big stunt. I would not call that grounded. But with the comparison of the earlier Tom Cruise on the side of a building sequence, it makes it flow nicely, and we get a little bit of characterization in that as well. So they do some nice work throughout to make everything fit and feel cohesive within the tone that this movie sets. And we got a little bit more of that as we kind of entered the John Wick era of filmmaking, when it was really like, you know, a stuntman's kind of movie. But I think Mission Impossible's been on the forefront of that, in some ways anticipating the action that we eventually got in John Wick. But that's another detailed diatribe. We're not there right now.
I actually do think that something very interesting to be brought up here is a secondary thesis I have, which is that Mission Impossible and James Bond have been experiencing convergent evolution. They started as wildly different kinds of things and have sort of become the same thing. And I think a lot of that is because James Bond has gotten a lot less like funny haha gadgets that are so wacky and weird, and mad scientists, and, you know, death traps and all that stuff. And it's just like, this guy he's probably another terrorist leader who runs a surveillance network that covers half the globe. Like, they're all bad guys, all are like that now. And then Mission Impossible, I haven't watched the original show, but it was like, you're doing, you know, these, the mission is impossible, good fucking luck, team. But they've sort of converged into becoming the same, not grounded exactly, but I can't really think of a better word for it, because it's like, they are using gadgets and gimmicks like the funny rubber masks, but they've sort of been phasing those out as the movies go on.
The masks do frequently break, and that becomes a real plot point in 4 and 7. It's like, JK, we don't actually have masks.
I think that one of the things that they do very carefully when they're choreographing their action scenes is they want to make sure that the audience knows what all the pieces in play are before they start. Because you gave me a little bit of homework before this started. It was just an action sequence from MI6, which is very funny to abbreviate that way, on the subject of convergent evolution. And I remember being kind of startled at how effectively they communicate without ever having anyone say anything, like, here's the situation. This vehicle is armored. This one is lightweight, and it's a little bit unreliable, but it works. This person has this weapon on them. This person has this tool. Even something as complex as, oh, there's a radio transceiver in this guy. We're going to use this thing to block it. And we just communicate all that without saying that. I was like, that's an impressively complex thing to show, don't tell. And they do that a lot. And at every step, we are using technology that either we understand, guns, vehicles, stuff like that, or technology that we can pretty quickly figure out, like, this device is beeping when they do this, but then they do this and it stops beeping. So probably that was good.
It's very intuitive if it's not explained directly.
Right. And that means that when the characters are interacting with these things and moving through them, they basically just establish quickly, here's what we're working with, so the audience knows how it's supposed to work and then isn't blindsided when it starts not working. Again, the Burj Khalifa, they're like, here, you've got these grippy gloves. They should let you stick to the window. And if they stop working, you're going to just have to free climb it. And it's like, okay, cool. Now we know what it looks like when they work. And we can pretty quickly figure out what it looks like when they don't.
Yeah. And also it's like, check up. Here's your pistol, sir.
Exactly. They do a lot of very elegantly simple planting and payoff in all of their action sequences, which again does a good job to let the characters feel more human, because they're dealing with an imperfect system, and a lot of the time it looks like they're improvising, which from the audience perspective is like, yeah, man, these characters are so smart. And from like the writing standpoint, it's like, wow, they are really being very careful in putting together a situation that they can then cleanly break in very specific ways so our heroes can still get out of it.
Yeah. It's the kind of movie that I didn't necessarily appreciate when I first watched it, because I enjoyed it, but I didn't realize just how good it actually is. Like, James Bond, I feel like, it compares unfavorably to Mission Impossible because a lot of the stuff that happens in James Bond, like basically after Casino Royale, it's mostly like dumb contrived bullshit by volume, whereas Mission Impossible puts in a lot of efforts to make things work very elegantly in what is otherwise a very complex scenario. Even if the plot can get convoluted, the mechanics of each individual sequence, Red, to your point exactly, are very cleverly communicated and things are set up nicely so when stuff happens, it doesn't have to explain everything in minute detail. It's just like, okay, and this, the glove stops working. You know exactly what it looks like when the glove stops working. Okay, Ethan needs to free climb now, so yeah.
I think that's maybe why we drew the Jackie Chan comparison, even though tonally they have almost nothing in common.
Yeah.
But it is because they do the same communication of show don't tell through the fight choreography, which is a very difficult skill because fight choreography is friggin' hard. You can tell because a lot of movies don't do it good. So the fact that this one does it well enough that we can hardly find the seams to take it apart and understand how it works, it's a good sign. These movies are, I think, on the subject of not really giving it a fair shake on the first time through, for me, these are like peak action movie. I watch them to let the action wash over me for a few hours, and then I stop thinking about it. But I think I am going to need to give them another go and like pay more attention to how they're actually put together.
Watch them linearly through over the course of 3 days like Cyan and I did, and you'll get the real experience.
Perfect. I see no downsides to this plan.
Maybe don't do that. But speaking of impossible, nothing's ever really impossible, though, is it? Because in the structure of a story, the third act softly necessitates that the protagonists win, because otherwise that would be a bad story that doesn't work on the core like premise of being compelling and having an ending that makes sense. So the format of storytelling kind of necessitates that they have to eke out a victory in the end, perhaps at a cost. Maybe there's some sacrifice they need to make, maybe someone gets real beat up in the process, but the fundamental structure of storytelling basically locks in a good ending. So even though as we get into the third act, we can see things being tense and it's like, oh, they're always going to make it just at the last second, but how are they going to do it? We know that they eventually will, because sure, forget what Ethan Hunt thinks. Do we as an audience believe that Thomas Cruise IV himself has the guts to kill off esteemed international hottie Benjamin Dunn? No. No, he doesn't. Therefore, the stakes are immediately diminished.
Oh, boy. I wasn't ready for esteemed international hottie Benji Dunn.
That was probably the first, solid phrase that came to me in the process of building this presentation. Tom Cruise won't kill esteemed hottie Benji Dunn, will he?
Oh, boy.
No, he won't. And of course, there's drama in how they pull it off, but we know that they will. The biggest threat to the characters is not anything actually happening in the world, it's Rebecca Ferguson's shooting schedule for Dune, which is why she had to die in Mission Impossible 7.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they might not be willing to kill Benji or Ving Rhames, but, the woman turnover in Mission Impossible is pretty unforgiving. It's a different one every movie until recently.
It is pretty fiercely, the biggest problem with Mission Impossible is the revolving door of disposable women.
Yeah.
But
Benji's gonna be fine.
Benji will be fine. So the third act only has so much that can go wrong in it without the story completely breaking in the process. But the thing about the second act is that is a very different narrative space. It has, in storytelling, probably the widest spectrum of possible outcomes that the story can allow, ranging from complete success and we end the story early to complete TPK and we end the story early. So basically, so long as the plot doesn't grind to a halt and the little VHS tape just fizzles out and explodes, it's fine and allowable within the story, and it can work and let the plot progress and still lead to a satisfying conclusion. So it's far more interesting because the matrix of outcomes is the widest in the second act. Assuming a 3-act structure, some movies have more of a 4 or 5-act structure, but I use this image of Deadpool 2 when he's planning the X-Force heist, no need for a third act.
Yep.
When I saw that movie, that was the funniest thing of the entire showing for me. It's oh my god, they fucking get it. They understand.
I mean, this is part of why when you have planned trilogies of movies, frequently the second movie is the one that really sticks with people. Everyone's oh, Empire Strikes Back is the best one. And it's because it ends with such a weirdly dark tone. It's oh, our hero's gonna pull it off. And it's well, yeah, in the third act, obviously. But in the second act, they're allowed to have their darkest hour belly of the whale thing going on.
Yeah. And even still, it's like, oh, the third act necessitates the protagonist win. The second act softly necessitates that it's a darkest hour. But the ranges of what a darkest hour could be are far wider than the ranges of what success looks like in the third act of a movie. So again, it's very interesting. And it also tends to have the most plates in the air. So the Mission Impossible films often excel in having sequences with multiple constraints and multiple objectives, sometimes being in conflict. We will get to that later. So there is a genuine uncertainty about what will happen because any one of those objectives could be met or failed and the plot can still go on and be interesting. Any one of those constraints can, show up at any time to cause a snag for the plot. They do so many things in laying out the board for these sequences that even Chekhov would lose track of all of the guns that are in play right now. And also, the second act's failure conditions tend to be the most interesting because they, in turn, set the terms for that final encounter, so we get to see how those consequences ripple out into the third act. So it's like, oh, okay, all the characters can die. They're not actually all gonna die. Some of the characters can be taken softly out of commission, or they can lose this thing that they're after, and that will affect what happens, so we get to see those consequences play out, and then the third act, being set up the way it is with these constraints, makes the second act retroactively more impactful because of how it lets the story progress and how it shapes the resulting narrative in that last bit afterwards. So the team can claw at little advantages or suffer setbacks and trigger new constraints to deal with, and that is the dynamism of the second act in general, and especially Mission Impossible movies. So let's take a look at one example from Mission Impossible 4, the Dubai Intercept. I don't know if anyone else calls it that. I was just like, how do I describe it? It's an intercept. Okay, cool. Dubai Intercept. Let's go.
I think everyone just talks about it as it's the bit with the Burj where he has to climb the tallest building in the world.
The Burj business, yeah. The team essentially has to intercept both sides of an arms deal where one person is selling nuclear codes in exchange for diamonds, so they have to intercept on the seller and the buyer. They have to do this whole business with like changing the floors so that one person goes to one floor, one person goes to another floor, and then their masks are broken and they have to just do the deal without masks. So it's like, oh no, we have to hope these two people have never met before. It's dramatic. It's suitably dramatic. But the idea is simple in what they're trying to achieve. They have true codes that they're trying to get from the seller. They then scramble them and give the fake codes to the buyer. So they can basically intercept the seller, take them out of commission, give the fake codes to the buyer so they don't end up with what they want, and then they can still get the buyer afterwards captured and then put a nice bow on it. No need for a third act. We're in business. But of course, that's not what actually ends up happening because the buyer brings an adjudicator to make sure the codes are true. So at the last minute, they're like, we have to go with the real codes or we're not going to be able to do it. And then Agent Brandt, who's Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, is like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're not going to do that. And Ethan Hunt's like, the mission is not the codes. The mission is bad guy whose name I forget. And then they're like, piss, fine, okay, we'll do it. And then, of course, everything goes to hell. It all comes undone. There's a huge chase sequence. A lady gets kicked out of a building. It's a whole thing. But the plan unravels in spectacular and very narratively satisfying fashion as we see them have to make progressively more dangerous improvisations in the process of trying to pull off this intercept. The outcome is that the seller is taken out of play, having gotten kicked out of the building, and the bad guy gets the codes, which means that they have to then go to the third act, and the bad guy has exactly what he wanted the whole time, and it's like, okay, cool. It's a very well put together sequence.
Yeah.
But it is not the detail that we are here to diatribe about today. So instead, we go to Mission Impossible 6 and the Paris convoy, which is probably my favorite second act sequence in the whole series, and potentially my favorite second act in any film ever, because it is truly just that good. So let's explore what's happening here. On paper, to simplify the plot of the movie in Mission Impossible Fallout up to that point, they're tracking 3 plutonium cores to stop a nuclear attack, which brings them to Paris to intercept a deal where this character, the White Widow, is selling the cores to a mysterious buyer that they think is going to then funnel them to the big bad, this international mysterious unknown terrorist, John Lark, who looks like Henry Cavill with a mustache.
Well, spoiler alert. Hey, we're not supposed to know that yet. It is funny to me how this actually does beat for beat resemble the setup to MI4 up to and including, oh damn, our disguise plan isn't gonna work. We're just gonna have to hope they've never met and we'll buy that Tom Cruise is the bad guy they're negotiating with.
Yes, it is very funny how many sequences in later Mission Impossible movies kind of pull directly from earlier ones. It's a cute little bit of like kind of narrative mirroring. It's like poetry, it rhymes, but also the less generous read is like, holy shit, that's the same exact setup as Mission Impossible 4.
Well, we did have a funny situation at one point where rewatched MI1 and MI7 back to back, because of course MI7 is full of homages to like the earlier movies, and it's really funny how when you lay them next to each other, you're like, yeah, it's the same picture.
Yeah.
Oh, they're wearing it on a train, groundbreaking. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. The catch is that the White Widow does not want diamonds in exchange for the thing that she's selling, like with what happened in Mission Impossible 4. She needs a job done. In this case, they have to break out the last film's antagonist, Solomon Lane from Mission Impossible 5, out of police custody. And as this is happening, Ethan Hunt is impersonating notorious terrorist John Lark without the aid of a face mask. So he was basically playing on Team Bad Guy and has to then do a job for Team Bad Guy. And this is quite obviously a conflict, because Ethan does not want either part of this outcome, breaking out the bad guy from custody, which was like the whole thing that he did in Mission Impossible 5, was putting him in a box. But also, the White Widow's plan involves murdering the entire police convoy that's escorting him to get Solomon Lane out of baby jail.
Yeah.
So both aspects of that are bad. The means and the outcome are terrible for Ethan.
And it's pretty funny. It's so funny because, of course, she's like, well, you're John Locke, you know, you're notoriously ruthless. And he's like, yeah, that's right. I'm a very bad boy. I've done real bad things. I wouldn't feel a single dang thing bad if I had to shoot a cop. I'm the worst. And meanwhile, Henry Cavill is standing 3 feet away from him like, yep, yeah, pretty cool, right?
Anywho. Here he has an 8-pack.
Yeah. Damn, I bet that guy does a cool arm reload whenever he punches guys in a bathroom. Anyway.
I hear he kicked Batman's ass.
Hey, tell me more about how fucked up and evil this guy is. For no reason. Wow, what a scoundrel, am I right?
I should hire Ethan Hunt as my PR. Holy crap, he's good.
Oh, boy.
So, as we are in this sequence talking about what we're going to do for getting the guy out in exchange for the plutonium cores, we cut to a very ethereal music sequence of this convoy basically coming down this little alleyway on the side of the Seine, and it becomes abundantly clear that the plan is murder. So what happens is, as I write here in the slides, Trapo, Springo, these 2 trucks pull out from the sides of these garages and then box in the entire convoy. Everyone gets out of trucks and starts mowing everybody down, eventually leading to this one guy who is shot but still alive and is reaching for his gun, and Ethan Hunt walks up to him. Oh man, I really don't want to shoot you. And then 5 other guys come next to Ethan Hunt. It's like, do it. You're one of us. You're evil. Shoot the guy. So Ethan Hunt is, can't wiggle my way out of this one, gang. And then he goes to shoot the guy, and as he pulls the trigger, Ethan Hunt wakes back up in the planning room. This was all a flash forward dream sequence. And he's like, oh, pissed. I see the outcome, and this is terrible. And then this is when we get the moment where the White Widow's like, oh, what, you draw the line at killing cops? Come on, Ethan, ACAB. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, I kill women and children with chemicals. No, Don't worry, this is fine.
He wakes up from a PSA on the dangers of succumbing to peer pressure and is like, don't even worry about it. I'm the baddest boy. I would definitely kill people for fun and profit. Yeah.
So we have this conflict where Ethan has to protect his cover, and that means doing things that are horrible, potentially, for the sake of the mission.
For the folks at home, the name of this trope is, if you're so evil, eat this kitten. It is whenever a protagonist has to pretend to be a bad guy, and the other bad guys are like, I don't know if you're bad guy material. If you're really so evil, why don't you eat this kitten? And then they have to find a way to get out of it. It's always pretty fun.
Yeah, okay, so Ethan eats the kitten. That's exactly
Ethan's
what's happening here.
I've got no choice. I'm John Lark. I eat kittens for breakfast. Henry Cavill's like, yeah, good protein.
Vanessa Kirby's like, eat the kitten, bitch. Do it.
Mark Hamill's like, yeah, I hear eating kittens gives you an 8-pack. Anywho. Mark Hamill, Jesus Christ, who the f*** am I talking about?
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. You obviously you understand the confusion. They're identical. Henry Cavill is like, yeah, I hear.
They both love playing bad guys.
Yeah. It's what they're most known for.
It's actually kind of funny that they play the goodest boys in Luke Skywalker and Superman, and that they also have the most fun playing bad guys. But this now establishes 2 things. One is that, as mentioned, Ethan's morality is in conflict with this assignment. He has to do a terrorism to rescue a terrorist, which is a bad outcome and a bad means. But more importantly, the plan has been set, and we as the audience know what the plan is. So the unspoken plan guarantee has been activated, which, if you haven't seen the relevant Trope Talks, is basically the idea that if you say the plan out loud, it narratively becomes unsatisfying to see it play out twice. So if you have the plan said out loud, something else will happen. If the plan is not said out loud, it will go off without a hitch, because then we're only seeing it once, and then it's kind of like soft rules of storytelling for how to make things satisfying. So the unspoken plan guarantee has been activated by this framing of, here's what we're gonna do, killing all these cops to break out a terrorist. So now that we've seen the plan, we know something else has to happen. And the film has basically tacitly issued a threat, which is that the bad ending now looms over Ethan as the actual convoy sequence begins the next morning. And this drama has essentially two prongs. One is plot and one is character. The plot prong is, how will Ethan avoid the bad ending while still securing both the target and the plutonium, which are his two objectives. Obviously, the most important one is the plutonium, stopping the bombs. But also, he doesn't want to just undo all the hard work he did in Mission Impossible 5, so he essentially has to get both of them locked. But also, the character aspect of this is, does Ethan even want to avoid the bad ending, or is the mission, TM, too important to take the risk? Because what we've seen so far is the very beginning of the movie starts with a kind of like dream sequence where Ethan is getting married to his now like secret witness protection wife, Julia, and it's being officiated by bad guy Solomon Lane, who is like, do you take each other as husband and wife in sickness and in health, even though Ethan's gonna get you all killed because he sucks and is always like such a bad, awful dude who gets his friends killed. And Ethan's like, rude, and then a bomb goes off in the background, and it's like a whole thing.
It's very subtle.
It's very, very subtle filmmaking.
I just don't know what this dream could possibly mean.
So, the movie's titled Fallout. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, I think that in that sequence, one of the bad guys even says, like, the fallout will be your fault. It's like, he said it.
Yeah. And then also later on in the introduction phase of the movie, these 3 plutonium cores being out in the wind happens because Ethan has the opportunity to basically shoot Luther and not lose the cores, or lose the cores and keep Luther alive. And of course he protects his team no matter what, and the cores go into the wind and then they have to go track him down. So the question is, what lesson has Ethan learned from the movie thus far? Is he going to still be the Ethan Hunt who cares about every last life, or has he just decided, you know what, I'm done f***ing around, I'm gonna lock this down, we're just gonna stop this whole process here, get the cores out of the open, and just end this movie, no need for a third act.
And it helps because we've had a couple devil's advocates rattling around in the movie, basically, mostly in the form of Henry Cavill's character. Because he's basically like, I'm here because you don't have what it takes to do what needs to be done. You're not even willing to brutalize innocents in the course of justice or whatever. And this is a separate detail of this movie, but I do think that Walker's characterization is a fun little bit of trope 3-card Monty, because oh, hello, Tom Cruise, this is your new partner. He's a bit of a loose cannon, but then so are you. Oh, I wonder if they'll learn to appreciate each other. And then the midpoint of the movie hits and it's like, oh no, we're doing something else actually, it's quite fun.
It's good trope subversion, because it's like, oh, this is an established, story structure of like, yes, here's your new teammate who sucks, and you have to deal with him and eventually become friends. It's like, no, he's just the bad guy.
We did this with Jeremy Renner, and we won him over just fine. And what I think is interesting about this guy specifically is they play it very carefully. Again, the writing in this is very careful, because if you go into this movie taking it at face value, you're like, oh yeah, Walker, he's a loose cannon, but like he works okay with the team when they're on the same page, but they could learn to like do better. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. If you watch it knowing that he is Lark the bad guy, everything he says and does shows that he's Lark the bad guy. There's a really funny bit when they're about to do the Halo drop, and he's like, what's the plan? He's like, well, I'm gonna use this to get a scan of Lark's face, and then he uses it to scan Walker's face. Is like, then I'll use it to print a mask and impersonate him. And I was like, what a funny example you're using. How strange and interesting, Mr. Cruise. There's a bit where Walker tries to get his like handler to believe that Ethan Hunt is secretly Lark, and is like saying, well, he's a government agent, but how many times has his agency screwed him over? How many more of those can a man take before he goes to the dark side? It's like, I don't know, Walker, you speaking from experience? Kind of sounds like you might be speaking from experience. And it's the best kind of surprise villain villain reveal because it makes sense both before and after. And it's the trope 3-card Monty thing, because beforehand you're just like, oh yeah, he's an asshole, he's a loose cannon, but like, you know, he's got a heart of gold in there, I assume. And it's like, no, just kidding, he's all the way down, actually.
They do a good job of establishing why Walker and why Angela Bassett's character, whose name I forget, the CIA like director, would believe, oh, maybe Ethan Hunt is John Lark, he's assuming his own cover, it's the perfect plan. And it's like, oh no, Walker is just framing him. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's clear in that scene that that's what's happening, because we saw before that, the guy who was supposedly Lark, who they killed, who Ilsa killed, his phone was busted up beyond repair, and then Walker's like, this is the phone we pulled off the body, I think you'll find all the evidence you need, and the phone is clean, and it's like...
perfectly clean.
So I was like, what the fuck is he playing at? And then it's like, oh, that's what he's playing at. Again, like, I do kind of think I've not given these movies a fair shake by just letting them wash over me as, like, fun, pretty action go burr, but, like, the writing in them is very... careful, you know, especially in the later ones.
Careful is a great word for it, yeah.
And I do think that there is that little question at this point in the story, like, is Tom Cruise willing to sacrifice a few cops to do the greater good thing, like to let that plan go out without a hitch, as usual? And the answer is usually no, but he does have a rare opportunity in this time. We've seen the plan play out. We know that it would work perfectly at the cost of just killing all these guys.
Yeah.
And no need for a third act, so who knows?
The kind of tacit framing of you can solve 2 movies worth of problems if you do the bad thing. That's tempting.
Yeah.
That's tempting.
And it's not even like sacrifice your friends. It's not even like hand over your Catwoman love interest. It's just like, just shoot some nameless background characters. We can even keep their SWAT helmets on so you don't even need to see their faces. Who the f cares?
So as we get into the real sequence, a big day for people who hate convoys. Huge day for convoy haters in the audience. The convoy begins for realsies, and we see basically every step of the process, from like the helicopter comes to Paris, lands on a building, they take Lane out of the helicopter, they put him in the convoy, and you see a much longer version of the route they're taking on their way to the ambush point. And then eventually the truck like kind of goes careening sideways, and then they divert down to the side area by the river. And everything is going basically according to the established plan, but there are, as we kind of zoom out, a lot of plates in the air. We've got the plutonium, the target in the convoy, Solomon Lane, the widow's mooks, the police, and any other surprise Ilsa-shaped complications that come up later, but we'll get to that in a second. We do see a mysterious figure on a motorcycle driving around Paris, proximate to the convoy. So the dread and tension in this sequence builds really well as the cars slowly move to the ambush zone, and every second that we spend with the plan going according to the widow's plan is one more second spent in the bad timeline, inching agonizingly closer to the bad ending. So as we progress, there are fewer divergence opportunities, and the tension ratchets up as we get closer to like, Ethan, buddy, your window's closing, what are you gonna do? And a fun little conversation that plays out in the middle of all this is Walker and Hunt talking to each other about Solomon Lane. Walker's like, is it true that he gassed a village of 2,000 people? Is it true that he brought down a commercial airliner just for one guy? And Ethan Hunt is like, if it makes your stomach turn, yeah, it's probably him. And Walker's like, holy shit, you're the guy that caught him, aren't you? How long do you think he's going to keep that to himself? So this is now another potential plate in the air of Lane's going to expose your cover as soon as he sees you. So Ethan, buddy, what are you going to do? And then, of course, Splish Splash Idiots get in the water. As the plan is, instead of boxing in the convoy, he just rams the truck off the little pier and into the water, and then everything goes into insano mode as the cops get out and start trying to like figure out what's going on. Ethan then backs the truck through the little garage they were parked in out onto the street, dumping all of the mooks conveniently
so
out behind
funny.
them as they speed away.
The cam they have in the back so we can see all the mooks getting like flung around like they're on the bridge of the Enterprise. It's just so funny.
So funny.
It's like, it's no seatbelts back there, I guess.
Yeah, seriously. Also, not how truck doors work. Like, it's a latch. They wouldn't just open because Ethan turned it hard. But it was very funny that they all just tumble out.
I choose to believe that Ethan was in there at 3 a.m. with a little file wearing down the latch so that it would snap when he jerked the truck around.
Headcanon. I believe that. So as we see the situation play out, Ethan basically knocks him into the water and then drives the hell away. His mission now is make a easy no-kill getaway from the police should be totally doable, barely an inconvenience. Meanwhile, Lane is about to drown in the Seine, and Benji and Luther show up to extract him from underwater. So this continues on. They manage to get their whole extraction out. They put him on a boat, and then it's just a matter of getting him in a car and taking him out. Until then, they open the garage door and they meet the most doe-eyed cop in all of Paris, who it's like, uh-oh, Ethan, you are going to maybe have to kill a cop after all. So just as soon as like everything has gone perfect, a wrench gets thrown in. It's like, oh, smash back to fundamental conflict. Even with your plan going so well, you can't avoid the bad luck of a cop just giving a ticket to some car that's parked illegally in the exact wrong spot in Paris, leading to the most hilarious visual ever of Luther, like, with this guy, a black bag over his head, putting him in the car, and then Walker and Benji just, like, sheepishly smile at this police officer who's like, what the fuck am I looking at?
Because they're like, oh, there's no way to pass this off as not incredibly sus, and she's putting the pieces together as they watch. I will shout out the escape from the cops is a lot more intricate than I remember. There's a lot more steps. They have to like wedge the truck in like a perfectly truck-sized alley and then kick out the windshield and escape, and then his motorcycle doesn't work, and then it's just Tom Cruise driving in the least safe way possible because there's cops everywhere, and his clean little getaway by cutting a little hole in that net and dropping down on the boat. That was very, very nice, very elegant. And you're like, oh wow, he's pulled it off. I didn't think he could. It really felt like that motorcycle chase was going to go on forever, but he made it. He's out home free. And then the world's most doe-eyed traffic cop is like, qu'est-ce que anyway. So...
I'm going to use that.
Thanks, I stole it for Dragon Ball
I'm going to use that irresponsibly. Yes, so we are shot back into dramatic suspense hell, where we are right back where we started. Is Ethan going to do the bad ending for the sake of the mission? And the answer is that the White Widow's mooks are going to do it for him. So they show up, shoot the cop right when Walker is about to pull out his own gun and shoot this lady. They get this one guy to kind of walk forward to the cop, and we get the same angle as what Ethan saw in his dream sequence, where it's very, very hazy effect, looking up from the perspective of the person who's about to shoot. Gun comes up, and then Ethan Hunt does his Tom Cruise classic quick draw to shoot him and the other three mooks. So the cop does not get murdered, just tastefully shot in the gut, very survivable.
Super survivable.
Ethan spends precious time radioing in to make sure that the cop gets help, like, oh, okay, Ethan does care. Very conveniently timed for Ethan, all things considered. But he did ultimately the hard thing, being the right choice for the fewest innocent people to get killed. But of course, this is not without complication, because the fact that the White Widow's mooks get killed means that more complications get added later on. We'll see how that plays out in a second. And what we are now getting is the fallout from Ethan's choices spilling into each preceding act. Specifically, fallout in the shape of Ilsa Faust, who shows up, and as they are driving away from this cop, starts shooting at Solomon Lane, which of course is a problem, because if Lane is dead, Ethan loses his bargaining chip. So this then triggers another sequence of complicated stunts and drama and action into the sequence, and the target fully dying now becomes a potential outcome. So we thought we solved Ethan Hunt doesn't have to kill a cop, and then that becomes a problem again, solve it again. We thought we solved Solomon Lane fully dying when he's about to drown, but then they save him, and it's like, no, he can also maybe die again. So like, things are solved and then unsolved and then solved again. So we get a lot of mileage out of each constraint and each plate that's spinning in the air. So it's very elegant writing in that regard. But now with this whole sequence playing out, the White Widow blames Ilsa for the death of 4 of her mooks, which is convenient for Ethan because he is not blamed for killing them. Of course, they couldn't give witness statements. But also, this means that the White Widow's price goes up in that, in addition to handing over Lane, he now has to hand over Ilsa Faust, which is like, okay, is Ethan going to betray his friends and kill his team for the sake of the mission? And this spills out into the later sequences. That's Act 3 stuff. We won't look at that right now. So this essentially closes the Paris convoy sequence with a lot of things happening and an interesting set of complications leading into the next part of the movie as they go to do the handoff of the target in London, and then other stuff happens, Walker's betrayal, yada, yada, yada. But the Paris convoy in Fallout is, in my opinion, a damn near flawless sequence that makes the most of dramatic tension at every point, sometimes even double and triple dipping into the same things, where it's like Ethan and the cop, Lane dying. It's very cleverly constructed and leverages the unspoken plan guarantee for pure dread and forcing Ethan to make perilous choices, dooming the mission perhaps for the sake of his principles. We want to think we know that Ethan will do that, but the movie makes a compelling case that maybe in this instant he's gonna just break and take the easy out and get the bad option for the sake of the mission. It's very well constructed, and the movie delights in snaring the possibility matrix of the second act so that the drama is constantly evolving and playing out in interesting ways where there are tons of things that can go wrong in the course of this whole sequence. So I consider this A+ storytelling and A+ filmmaking that is unsurpassed throughout the franchise and frankly in most movies.
I think one really interesting thing about the way they resolve this whole little internal dilemma is that everything that we see Ethan do is very in character for him. Like, we're like, how is he going to get out of this? And it's like, oh, this, cool. Like, the fact that the first thing he does is like, all right, this truck in particular, and then just yeets the truck that has the guy he hates in it into the water is like, we're going to fish him out, but like, let him squirm for a while, you know, whatever.
For a second it's like, is Ethan going to kill Lane? Okay,
I mean, he can have a little murder as a treat as long as it's a bad guy, I guess. And I do think that's a lot of fun. And then like, oh, the actual getaway is like, okay, we're going to just dump all these mooks here so that the cops are busy dealing with them, and then we're just going to escape. And clearly they'd planned for this specific exit route too. It's like, as soon as they wedge the truck into that alleyway, the motorcycles are waiting for them. So like, okay, we're fine. We'll just make our getaway on motorcycle. And it's not clear if like, does Ethan know where he's going at this point, or is he just going away from where there are cops? And there's a few points where it looks like he'll be able to just kind of walk away, but nope, just kidding, there's more cops. So it's like, okay, we know that he's good at this. Like, if there's one thing Ethan Hunt is really good at, it's stunt driving. So we're like, okay, he will get out of this doing this. But then when he just dives behind the bush, it's like, well, what's he going to do back there? There's like a million cops. It's like, oh, it's just kidding. That's why he pulled out the knife. Oh, okay, cool. And it's just... It's always fun to me when a character surprises you with something completely in character for them. And normally, Ethan Hunt is kind of just a mission-accomplishing machine. So just a little bit where he just dumps Lane's truck into the water. Like, yeah, that's a good plan. And also, you know that felt good. You know he was like, oh, no, I sure hope he doesn't get a concussion or die or whatever. That would just be awful. But then the problem is, like, when he's in another little, like, elegant writing moment, when Ilsa shoots through the windshield, she's aiming directly at Lane. She clips him in the head, and he's wearing a black bag, so we can't tell how bad the damage is, and neither can Ethan. So Ethan has to pull the bag off, and Lane is, like, his ear's been clipped, but he's, like, alive, and he looks over at Ethan, and Ethan's like, well, we know he's like, oh, how interesting. Ethan Hunt is rescuing me. How fun this is. And Ethan's just like, fuck. And it's, again, like, we have the context for these characters so they can show, don't tell what they're feeling, because, like, we know how Ethan has to be feeling in this moment. And this whole scene, like, having seen the bad ending where Ethan Hunt is just fully going along with what's expected of John Lark, it's nice to see him add a little bit of that Ethan Hunt, shape-shifting god of chaos thing that we get later. And it's kind of fun because when he's explaining himself to the widow later, she's like, that was super not the let's go kill everyone plan. He's like, yeah, well, that plan sucked, so I had to get a little bit weird with it. And she's like, you know, that's fair. It's fair. It's like, yeah. The audacity gambit pays dividends in this kind of situation, which is nice. The fact that they showed us the bad ending so that then we could watch as Ethan figures out and executes the plan to escape it is good. And it avoids the unspoken plan guarantee at pretty much every spot, but it doesn't ever confuse us because it's like, oh, okay, they planned for this, but maybe this part they improvised or something like that, which is another thing the Mission Impossible movies love doing. They like having things fuck up at key moments, not so much that it's like a diabolus ex machina that ruins the plan, but to force the characters to operate around it. Like, I feel like it was at its highest level in Ghost Protocol, because that's the one where literally no piece of technology that was supposed to work in that movie worked the way it was supposed to. And they kind of ratcheted that back. It's like some of these things will work, but some of them won't. Like the motorcycle takes a while to start up. Why is that? It's so that they can separate Walker and Ethan so that they're doing two different things.
It'll also be probably way easier to film a chase where there's one main character on a motorcycle rather than two. So it's like, let's just get Henry Cavill out of frame for this one.
It's like, oh, Henry Cavill, do you want to do your own stunts as you dangerously weave through Paris traffic? No, thank you. Okay, cool. Tom, you're up. So I think it's careful. It's such careful writing, and it ends up feeling effortlessly improvisational in places while also feeling like we're watching a carefully executed plan play out as best as it can, and then they have to like occasionally make up for the fact, like, oh, I thought this route would be clear, but it's not. I thought we'd have more time, but we don't. Okay, change of plans, Benji. I need you to pick me up in the boat. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a careful balance, and it's clear that they've been refining this particular form of writing over the course of all the movies, and it's good. It's a good sequence.
With that fantastic example now fully diatribed on, this can bring us back a little bit to the general premise of, like, how does Mission Impossible hit different? And so many action movies rely on punches, gunshots, and explosions for appeal and drama, and it usually kind of stops and ends with that. But Mission Impossible excels by injecting tension into sequences and setups that are already pretty dynamic. So something as simple as, like, oh, we're doing this exchange, but we don't have masks, becomes very tense. No one really gets punched until way later in the sequence, but the tension is at its highest right before the meeting begins, because are they going to be like, you're not the person who I'm supposed to meet? And it's those things that they leverage so well in these sequences. And this goes back to the very first Mission Impossible movie, where Tom Cruise does not shoot a gun or throw a punch in all of Mission Impossible 1, which most people don't even realize when they think about it, because it's mostly, there are explosions in the end with, like, the train and stuff like that, but it's very careful. It's very tense. And the magic of the tight wire sequence, literal tension, is in this balance of, like, it's in the second act. Tom Cruise can fuck up. Ethan Hunt can be out on his ass if they don't pull off this heist correctly, and they do manage to snare some things quite interestingly, where they get the disc they're after, and then the bad guy Krieger, like, steals it from Ethan, and then suddenly going into the next act, one of the members on our team stole the disc and is also fully a bad guy now. How do we deal with that? So this premise was already in place back in the first Mission Impossible in 1996, and it has guided the franchise through then, and it still works so well. And it is at its best where things can and will go wrong for Ethan, nowhere more so than in the second act and the spectacular slate of them across the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yeah.
So to bring it together, the second act makes the mission feel impossible, and these movies do it so damn well that they make it look easy.
That's clean.
Red, to your point of, like, I didn't think that there was that much going on underneath the hood of these movies, but truly they do it so well and so elegantly that it looks easy. It looks inevitable almost. But there's a lot of very careful writing and careful work going in on the character level and the plot level and the action choreography level to make it work so well. And the second act is where it all comes together, and no one does it better than Mission Impossible.
I have a couple thoughts, too, on, like, other little bits of supporting writing that they do. One thing that I think is interesting is it feels like there's a rule where they have to, in some way, fundamentally alter the situation by the end of the second act. Like, in the first one, it's like, okay, the team isn't what we thought it was. This guy's a bad guy, and now we're doing a different thing than we thought we were doing. I think now we're doing a different thing than we thought we were doing is, like, the rule for how they end Act 2 and transition into Act 3. It's like, okay, we set up something, but something went wrong, and now we're doing this other thing. On a more granular level, the Mission Impossible movies are very good at keeping to a minimum small-scale situations where the choices are success or everybody dies. That's obviously the large-scale stakes, but moment to moment, it's like, we're not all gonna die if we can't get the mask printer to work. We're not all gonna die if this character takes a punch in this fight. We're not all gonna die if this guy gets killed in this fight. And that means that there are individual small-scale stakes of failure, even if in the long run we know that they're not gonna end this by nuking the whole planet. There's a couple points in Fallout where the tension sort of stopped working for me, because, like, I think right at the end, it's like, oh, we have two separate nukes, and we need to cut these wires within, like, 1 millisecond of each other, or if they explode and we all die, and it's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen, so this part is fine, but I'm more worried about...
Ethan has to get the firing pin out, and that's the question of, like, can they do that?
That's the more difficult, and even if it's like, he's going to succeed because otherwise everybody explodes and the movie's over, like, yeah, but it's individual moment. Like, frequently the question is not, can our heroes succeed? It's what's it gonna cost for our heroes to succeed?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time it's like, well, are they gonna sacrifice their morals? Are they going to get grievously wounded? Is somebody going to sacrifice their life to make this happen? Like, we know good is gonna triumph in the end because that is how these movies work, but what's it gonna cost? And I think that the movies are doing a pretty good job of, like, keeping the audience from asking the question, can our heroes succeed in the end? Because that answer will always be yes. So instead they're asking the smaller scale question like, oh, is Ethan going to make it through this intersection without getting taken out by a fucking car? And the answer is yes. Just kidding. No, not this time. And then it's like, well, what's he going to do now? Oh, it looks like he's sprinting for that bush. What's he going to do in the bush? Oh, he's gone. Okay, cool. And I think that's part of what keeps these action sequences feeling so gripping is that we're just like, okay, what's he going to do next? Like, I know in the end he's going to win, but how's he going to get there?
How the hell is he going to get there? Yeah. We know that a nuke's not going to go off, but what the hell is Ethan Hunt going to do to make that outcome happen? And that is where all the tension resides.
And I also think it's so fun that, like, from a meta standpoint, the audience is, I would say, unusually aware of the actor behind the character when it comes to Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
Because, like, we all go into these movies like, what crazy shit is Tom Cruise gonna do in this one? And then we watch the movie and we're like, yeah, that sure was a crazy thing that Tom Cruise did. But we're supposed to be immersed in the story. We're supposed to be worried for Ethan Hunt. And it's kind of interesting that the audience can do both of those things at once. And I think the only reason it works is because while Tom Cruise desperately wants to fling himself into perilous situations, Ethan Hunt really doesn't. Ethan Hunt will spend like 10 minutes being like, please, for the love of God, tell me we have a solution that doesn't involve me dangling on the outside of the world's tallest building. And they're like, nope, sorry, that's the only way. You simply must.
Yeah. It's like later on in Fallout, there's a chase in London, and there's one sequence where Ethan Hunt is yelling to Benji in his earpiece, I'm jumping out of a window. Ethan Hunt is like, I'm jumping out of a window. And Tom Cruise is like, I'm jumping out of a window.
Inside Ethan Hunt are two wolves.
Yeah. But it is telling that the line between actor and character is thinner than usual, because half the times we were describing Ethan Hunt, we said Tom Cruise.
Well, it's funnier that way.
Yeah.
Timothy Cruise, just having a good goddamn time on set with his friends. I'm interested to take these movies apart with a little more care now, because I think I've mostly experienced these movies in movie nights with you and the gang. So, like, I haven't really sat down to just, like, experience them in a non-popcorn movie context, which might be why I like the second one so much, because it's got all the explosions and the doves and the motorcycle jousting. Hell yeah.
If you're willing to disassociate, the second one's a good time.
Yeah, and I think that's really what this is. But when I was watching this sequence, I was A, surprised at how long it was, and B, surprised at how short it felt.
Yes.
It flowed very naturally. So I was like, oh, yeah, like, I believe it's going to be difficult to escape this situation. The second act is what makes these movies work, because they change the game fundamentally.
Yeah.
Like, you start the movie off and it's like, here's the situation and here's the solution. Now get from point A to point B, and we recommend you do it this way. And then they'll try, and some things will fuck up. And by the end, it's like we started off playing chess and now we're playing Go. And the vibes are completely different. And the longer they keep the audience from asking the question, are they going to succeed in this one thing, or is the whole world going to blow up, the more immersive it is. And I think they've probably had a lot of practice writing out scenarios where they can make you focus less on, is everyone going to explode, and more on how are they going to get out of this awkward social situation. Truly, the tensest I ever felt was when Tom Cruise was trying to talk down the cop lady. Like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. It looked like it was kind of working. She did look like she was hesitant to just straight up shoot this man.
The raw charisma of Ethan Hunt is like, you don't want to give us a parking ticket. Pay no attention to the man getting blackbagged behind me.
It's like, oh, you brought me Paris's most doe-eyed cop? Well, how about Mission Impossible's most doe-eyed agent? How about that, huh?
Yeah. You do get the sense that it truly almost works. Walker has his gun ready, like, I'll shoot this lady if I have to. He's like, holy shit, he might actually pull it off.
I do think that I'm still really interested by the way that Walker's character works. 'Cause I've watched this movie, I think only once all the way through. And I remember just being kind of blindsided, even though in hindsight, of fucking course he's evil.
Oh, no, in hindsight, of course, but like, I got when it happened the first time.
And I think part of what works is that it's useful to have a token evil teammate, because, Ethan doesn't want to have to shoot this lady, but the good news is Ethan doesn't have to make that call, because if he takes too long, Walker's gonna shoot that lady, and Ethan's gonna feel bad about it, but it's not actually gonna be his fault. So, like, we've got kind of a moral ripcord here. We've got the guy on the team who will just ice this lady and just get them out of the situation if necessary. And it's like, oh no, obviously that would be terrible, but like, come on. She's a background character. She's only here to make Ethan feel kind of bad. Surely the Mission Impossible movies would never use women this way again. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. I don't want to bang the drum of like the one consistently weak bit of the writing in these stories when they're so generally good.
It is the problem with Mission Impossible is the way that the stories treat the women characters. Like, not a secret.
No, we all know.
If you watch any more than one of them, it's like, hey, wait a minute.
What happened to the lady in the last movie? Yeah. They put all this focus on, like, it was this team that held together, and then the next movie it's like, this team's looking a little bit slimmer than before. What happened to the, oh, wait, sorry, you've introduced another woman, so I suppose it's like the replacement goldfish. Like, the kid will never notice.
On the subject of, like, a token, like, evil team member, that's kind of Ilsa, where it's like, she's the loose cannon that makes Ethan seem tame by comparison. Because it's like, I'll shoot Solomon Lane, I'll do it. Tell me I won't.
Exactly, and that's what's so interesting is that as one of the complexities introduced at the end of Act 2 is now Ilsa's in that awkward position of like Ethan has been told you have to turn her in or you won't be able to do your mission, and he doesn't want to, and she doesn't want that because she's like, my sadistic choice is I have to kill Solomon Lane to be trusted enough to become a full-fledged trusted member of MI6 again, and it's like, oh, okay. I see what's happening here. You've put these two in an untenable situation that's mutually untenable, but they're both on each other's side. And I really do appreciate any dynamic where one character can attempt to shoot the other one with a sniper rifle, and then the other character can hit that character with the car, and then afterwards they're just hanging out like, hey man, I'm really sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Like you know we're cool, and they're both just on the same, but they're insane. I love it.
Yeah.
Ilsa.
It's like coffee shop AU energy, but actually in the story itself.
I love it when characters are so used to the most batshit insane things happening that they won't even bring it up later, which is part of why Benji is such a useful component in these movies, because he's the only one of these people who will hold grudges over like minor to major things. Like everyone else is like, hey Ilsa, I'm really sorry I hit you with that car when you tried to shoot me with that sniper rifle. And then Benji's like, ugh, I'm in an awkwardly small car squozed up next to Henry Cavill. This is the worst. It's like, yeah, sure.
God bless Benji. Esteemed international hottie Benji Dunn, the pillar that holds the entire rest of the franchise.
Truly. Good movie.
Good movie. That's all I've got. It's a damn good sequence and a damn good movie and a damn good franchise. Mm-hmm. So until we inevitably talk about Mission Impossible again, bye.
Beautiful.
Amazing.